Hi, I wanted to bring these more awareness on top of this, what you're going to see. Children are our future. The children are the future of all of us. And I can see, I know the signs. I'm going to press play in a minute. I'm going to echo this out in a different way because I'm going to listen to what they have to say, which I've already listened before I obviously put it out there. And it is awareness on child abuse. I want you to understand that where the pattern is coming from. Um, in certain areas of this avenue, when you hear this person say what they've got to say around child abuse, you'll understand that there is a bit of a pattern there within that arena of where she is. Now, there are differences between what she went through and also, as a self, I'm a victim of child abuse myself. There are different versions of what she will say how she coped, and I'm going to tell you how I coped. And it's quite the opposite. Awareness is key. So I'm going to play that back for you right now and go from there. So I'm just going to move my mic and press play.
This is Galit again. We have with us today a very special guest, Annette. Hi, Annette, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well. Thank you, Galit. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Just let me know that Annette is one of the strongest and inspired women in the whole universe, and I'm so happy she's going to take part in our project. Annette, I have a few questions for you. Can I start?
Sure, go ahead.
Good. You were a victim of sexual abuse in your family during your childhood?
Yes, I was.
At what age did it start?
I was quite young. I was 5. My first attacker was my at that age, that young age. My attacker was my grandfather, and between the ages of 5 and 14, also my brother and my father were attackers.
Because this is what the family knows, so that's what they do, actually.
I believe so. I learned later in life that I wasn't the only one subjected to sexual abuse from family members in this family. Pardon?
There were more victims.
Yes.
Yeah, because this is what they know, actually.
Yeah, it's behavior that's been learned and never spoken about, I guess.
We're gonna talk about it. We definitely are. Did the attacker ask you to keep the secret?
My grandfather never said anything to me. It was a one, I believe, to like so young. My mind, as I got older, protected me from previous memories.
Yeah.
So my grandfather, I don't believe, ever said anything to me. I don't remember ever him saying anything to me. My father didn't either. It was a behavior. I could give you more examples of what it was, but his behavior was confusing, to say the least. But the only attacker that told me not to say anything was my brother.
Okay. How long did the abuse go on for?
It went on for 5 to 14, so quite a while. The majority of the abuse was between the ages of 9 and 14.
As a child, did you realize that something was very, very wrong?
I didn't realize it as being wrong per se. I just realized inside of me that something felt awful. That's how I can express it. I don't think I knew at 5 that it was right or wrong. I just felt very uncomfortable around family members, especially my grandfather. Now as an adult, I can say yes, it felt wrong. I can put a label to it.
Your feelings got into place, to the right place.
Yeah. I was very confused as a child about my body, my thinking, my interactions with other people. It caused a lot of trauma.
Tell me, what does a girl who experienced sexual abuse at home feel?
Oh, I guess the most prominent thing is fear. I felt isolated and low self-esteem. I experienced a lot of loneliness because I went inside and didn't talk to anybody. I had inability to communicate my thoughts and feelings to other people, especially my mother. I was very disconnected from my mother. I felt shame, though, again,
Like
being
it's
so
your
young.
fault. It's
Pardon?
your fault. Like it's your fault.
At that young age, no, I did not realize I had that kind of thoughts. All I kind of thought about was, why is this happening to me? Why is he doing this to me? Why is nobody helping me? Why does nobody see what's happening? These are the kind of thoughts that went through my head. Right? I didn't have that, I guess, impression that it was my fault.
You managed to escape the vicious circle. How did you do it?
Oh my goodness. I woke up one day realizing how much I hated myself and how angry I was. I had a nervous breakdown. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression and anxiety. And I went to my doctor and I was screaming, saying, I just want to be happy. And so no matter what doctors were telling me, I didn't know the root of my problem was that I needed to get sexual abuse counseling. So when I finally went for that, I started to realize that the only answer to solving my problem was to learn how to love myself, because I didn't.
We're going to talk about it more in the future. And what do you do for a living today?
Sorry?
What do you do for a living?
I am a human whisperer, which is someone who holds space for others that are struggling with life or going along the journey of self-awareness, self-love, self-acceptance. I sit and listen to people, and what I do is I hold space. So I lovingly give of myself my time and my presence, and people are able to open up without being judged or given opinions or criticized. And I'm an author of 2 mindfulness coloring books for inner peace, and their titles are Love, Kindness, and Compassion. And the first volume
maybe I will show the people who will watch. I will upload my picture with your book. It's an amazing book. So
Thank
much
you.
colors, have so much power to heal people.
Yes.
Yes.
It was healing for me.
Yes.
And
it's healing for everyone. It's colors have power.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
And the coloring books came out from my traumas, helping me with my depression and anxiety. Loving myself was learning that I loved to create.
What tip can you give other people who experience abuse in their childhood?
What advice could I give them? Know that you're not alone. This happens so often to so many people, both male and female. It's not exclusive to one sex. Always don't doubt yourself that you don't require some form of therapy. I for many years, people told me, oh, you're okay. But I knew deep in my heart that there was something deeply wrong. So, and I waited and I waited and I thought, this is just how life is. But it wasn't. I needed to do some serious healing. So if someone who's sexually abused sometimes doesn't realize how deep it is and how to fix it. But you don't have to succumb to being a victim to your abuse. You can rise above it and get the help you need. Sexual abuse counseling is a must when you've been sexually abused.
Because the attacker actually twists your reality as a child.
Yes. I lost all my innocence. That was the biggest thing that came out of my therapy, was that I had a loss of innocence and trust. And even just in yourself, to have trust is almost impossible, because everything that's ever happened to you is related to pain.
Okay, we're gonna talk about it more in the future. What is the clearest sign you know of through which one can identify that a child is a victim of a sexual abuse at home?
Mine, I can only speak from my own experience, was anger.
Yeah, anger.
Yeah, anger. I was angry a lot. I also was very afraid to make friends.
Why is that? Why did you feel that you cannot make friends?
Because I was afraid of judgment.
Judgment. Okay.
Yeah, I was afraid people would know what happened to me. I was very disconnected from knowing what life was about. So when I see children and they're bubbly and outgoing, and they're touchy and they're not afraid to touch you, that child has a sense of self. But for me, when I see a child that is withdrawn and doesn't want to touch an adult, that's like a clear sign. Like, I never wanted to touch adults. So, and I didn't want adults to touch me. And if somebody touched me without my permission, I got angry. So I think the biggest and clearest sign of a child that's being abused is anger. If they're angered easily, or if they're very sad all the time, there's something deeply going on at home. Because if you have a happy home life, you're a happy child. If you have a very dysfunctional home life, you're a very unhappy child.
Well, thank you for the great tips, and thank you for the inspiration. And there's so much to learn from you and your story and the way you change your life. And as I told you before, it will be an honor for us to
add you to our project to. So you heard one version of child abuse. It continues. It doesn't happen in every household. It doesn't happen with everyone, but you can see there was a cycle. It started with her grandfather, then it went on to her brother and her father. So it suggests that perhaps her grandfather was abusing his own son, and his own son then went on to abuse the family. Do you see what I'm saying? So, okay, she says a happy child. Well, she says that anger. So that's how it resonated with her. She said she was anger. She mentioned about seeing happy children and a happy home. She's right. A happy home is a happy child. One of the things about the differences between her abuse and my abuse is that I did not speak out. I didn't know. Just as very similar. We didn't. You don't know you're in it because you're groomed into it. So you don't know you're actually in it. You don't actually think anything's wrong, but you do know that perhaps you shouldn't be saying whatever you should. You just don't. You just go numb to it. You go completely numb to it, and it just becomes a part of the norm. Now, she had her own parents, so that must be horrendous to have such trust in your own family, your siblings, and yet your siblings are abusing you because they don't know you're different because it happened to her father. So I don't know what happened to the grandfather. I wonder what his past was, but certainly inflicted injuries onto this family. With my abuse, I didn't say anything for a long time. That went on very early age until teenagehood, and I plunged myself into dancing. She's right. Couldn't really hold on to any friends. Isolation came in a little bit, but you end up being a little bit of a top-notch girl, and that was what was happening. But deep down, so you're seen as a bully, but you're not the bully. You're the one being bullied, but you're seen as a bully because you are defending yourself, and you're defending yourself with a mouth, with an attitude. I'm not taking this. And so I guess the anger was there for me, but I didn't go around hitting people left, right, and centre. More or less, they always wanted to challenge me. So at home, I was dealing with an abuser, which was a non-family member. But I don't even know how you can actually, you know what? I'm apprehensive of using those words because I've had it drummed into me. Is be careful what you say. Be careful what you say. Okay, non-family member. How can it be a non-family member when you are taught with respect to say hi, to be polite, and to serve the person a cup of tea every frigging minute? How can it be a non-family member as such when I resonate with the last name? It's the same last name, and so I have unanswered questions. But the person used to bike up to my parents' house quite frequently, and there was always food there and teas, carnation milk. He took his tea with carnation milk and 3 sugars. In the end, he ended up getting diabetes, but still, at the end of the day, to get my revenge back on him in my silent world and what he was doing to some of the people around me as well, he would do this to my friends in front of me, and I was disgusted and repulsed. So beards turn me off, especially when you see beards and they've got food in it. It turns me off. It reminds me of him. So in relation to this lady, when you were listening to someone's stories, it actually does trigger you. I'm good with talking through it because that's a child. When I'm looking at the inner child, I'm looking back. I'm not there. I'm here. I'm protected. They're not around me anymore. I've been able to get on with my life because they're not around me. But for a long time, I didn't know what was going on. Neither did that lady. Since I've been on the phone, she's actually contacted me. Just a message because I liked, children are our future. I loved listening to what she had to say. Clear messages there, and I liked the fact that she used creative arts to to indulge into self-worth and self-love about herself and to get in your own headspace. But for me, I indulged myself when I was younger into dancing. Could anyone see the signs? I was happy on the outside. It's the same here, isn't it? A mask, and no one knows what's going on in your head, what's going on behind closed doors. And it's exactly when you're going to watch a video like that, it's going to trigger, it's going to pull out those emotions. And then what do you do with it? Do you want to sit there and just give these past issues the power over you? No, I'm not going to. I'm going to talk about it. It doesn't bring shame on me. It doesn't, does it? Not at all. And talk about it doesn't bring shame on any of it. It's not our burden to bear. And I'm going to talk about it because at the end of the day, we want you to understand the awareness. These happens at very early age. And I think somewhere along the line, we have to consider what is the background like. What is the houses stable? Is there problems? Is there drug, alcohol? Who's in the crowd? What's going around? Who's babysitting the children? Who's looking after your children? Is it a male? Because I think that's, I might make mistakes sometimes. Who's looking after your children? Are they, you see, is it blood related or not? You get strangers to look after your children. In this case, it was their own family. No babysit required, right? And so that must be horrendous to have to experience that. But again, you blot it out. You get on with your life. You blot it out. It's only when you come into realization what it actually is, what it actually happened, where you go, ooh. And to be honest, I have major flashbacks every now and again of incidences, because sometimes I keep telling myself, this wasn't real. Really? Surely. And I have to go reach deeper in my memory. Did it really happen? And then I can pinpoint a time, at the place, the information, where I was, and even where my parents were off to bingo at the time. My mother was off to bingo then. Drink was involved back in the day. And he was left to watch over me. And most of my other siblings were in and out of the care home. So there we go. So there's me. And are you complicit to an abuser? They make you feel special. They supply you with gifts. Now, it might have been different with that other lady, but I'm going to tell you from my point of view that they will supply you with gifts. Now, you know that your parents are going to ask you, where do you get the money from? So you start to hide money. You start to hide chocolate. That's even chocolate. It's exactly chocolate. Boxes of Christmas chocolate. I remember there were balls with the gold string, red wrapper, and I would scoff them all and hide all the wrappers so my mum and dad wouldn't find them out, but they were supposed to be hanged on a Christmas tree. But oh no, he gave me a box of chocolates to sweet talk me into doing the things that he chose to do. I don't really speak about the in-depth of it, and it's only because that video has triggered off those memories. So I'm going to talk about it without going into too much detail of acts. So for me, the signs of my abuser was too much interactions around children. He wanted to be around the children all the time. He never really fitted in with the adults that were in that family arena. There was a lot of parties, but the adults that are in that family arena, he didn't really fit in. He sort of was just like supplying money. He supplied money because he didn't want my mum to suffer. That's what I found out. He didn't want my mum to suffer without any money, so he kept supplying money. Now, I'm not suggesting my mother knew about him, because I know that deep down I know she didn't. Deep down I know that she didn't. And I know that my father didn't. I wouldn't tell him. I wouldn't dare tell him. You don't want to tell anyone what's going on, because you actually don't really know what's going on. And so I can relate to that. It's not until later you realise how disgusting and how violated you have been as a child, how much you suffered as a child. And even you're going, that may be happening behind closed doors, but when you go to school, you're suffering again. And that goes on and on throughout that childhood, adolescence, into adulthood. Where am I today? Just like that lady, I'm glad that lady has done something inspirational. For me, I use my past to get ahead and raise awareness, so you can spot the signs. So take something out of her conversation and take something out of my conversation, is that your children, unless you've got 100% eyes on them, you've got to do your job, ain't you? You've got to look after your children and be a parent. You know, the minute you become a responsible parent is the minute you've got to be delicate with your children. But unfortunately, some parents abuse their own children because they've learned it from somewhere. And so for me, don't let the bastards steal your life. Don't let them steal your children's life. And you've got to be accountable for who you have around your children. How much time are they spending around your children? You know, because of the scenery, the adult scenery that those guys were in, just being normal people, having their parties and chatting and playing games and things like that. But just having it seemed like a very normal life what I was in eventually. But you know, behind closed doors, the other scenery wasn't. There was another secret world that I was living in that my parents were oblivious to because they were in their own world. So I wasn't going to tell my parents what happened because I didn't want to lose my parents to and bearing in mind my parents, they were on and off all the time. Dad was incarcerated. My mother, gosh, you know, I think she did a bit in Holloway at one point. So, you know, where was our children if your parents are not available and they're in the nick? Who's looking after the children? What's going on with the children? So we wasn't, for me, there are parts that I'm missing out of my life and I don't ever want to see them come up. Because I can handle it's all I can handle with what I've got right now. You know, when you have marks on your body and you understand where do they come from? Where does this one particular mark come from, and why is it so deep? It just puts me in another world of what happened to me. So I do have answer questions. Do I want to prompt on those questions? Of course not. It doesn't matter. Abuse is abuse, and that's a word for it. We want to talk about the acts of it? No, we don't. So therefore, let's just put that in a box. Abuse. Do we use it as child abuse? We can put that in a box as child abuse. Child abuse. Let's use the word rape. It's exactly the same. Child abuse, rape. When you take a child's dignity, you're raping that child. So therefore, at the end of the day, you've taken the childhood. And I can relate again to that lady who stole the children. You know, so there's plenty of that goes around in this world. And what can we do is we raise awareness. We're not ashamed of our past because it's not our burden to bear. But raising awareness for you to look closer to home, to protect your children and to give them a chance of life. That's why we do the awareness. Now, I am Kerry Mussington. I am now 50. I have had this, let's say, 40-something years of not understanding what was going on with me, even in future relationships, having struggled to hold or maintain relationships. Again, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of getting close to someone, trusting them with information about your life, and then all of a sudden they retract. And when they retract, it does 10 times worse because then you feel you are not good enough. You feel you're not good enough. So where does the consistency from human beings come from nowadays? There's not enough consistency. If you're going to be friends of people that have been victims of abuse and sexual abuse and domestic violence and things like that, you're going to be associates with them, then you need to be delicate with the time that you spend with each and every one of you, because when you just up and leave somebody within a few days of meeting them and yeah, and then you just drift off, yeah, you might be in your own world, But at the same time, behind closed doors, secretly, people are feeling abandoned. They're feeling not good enough again. They're feeling rejected, and most certainly feeling used. And I think is that big word there, feeling used, goes right back to all of that childhood traumatic experiences. So let's chuck the word PTSD on top of it. It's flashbacks, it's triggers, it's all of that when you're dealing with other individuals. And this is why we ended up retreating and retracting and just hi, just at a distance. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I thank those ladies for raising awareness, and I echo that out today on top of that, because awareness is not enough, and it happens in every culture, okay, every single culture, and it's a taboo situation because people want to try and think that will never happen to them, it won't happen to their family. Well, get real, it happens in families, it happens within the communities. Role models, that's what we're looking for. Role models, the ones that are not going to hurt you, the ones that are going to be compassionate, the ones that are not going to exploit you, you know. So again, you've got to look at the pattern of child abuse. Doesn't stop there. When people are victims of child abuse, they go on to most be promiscuous, bullies, care homes. The list is endless. In fact, actually, there is information that I've been writing down into the patterns of abuse. I love my research, and the patterns of abuse, and some of those patterns of abuse, maybe popular person, well dressed at school and stuff like that, but deep down, covering a secret. Always getting into fights, maintaining reputation, you know, people fearing somebody's name and reputation, fear of violence, and, you know, expulsion from school and getting us suspended from school. And look at the home, you see. Children making money illegally. I say children or even adults making money illegally because, you know, they probably want to support some kind of habit because they're masking the habit that has happened to them. That's where you get into drug and alcohol addiction, because you're masking things. Overspending, compulsive behavior, always wanting to buy new stuff, or maybe turning down their clothing appearance. So you could look at it that way. Children's home, well, I know that one. One day I'm going to talk to you about the children's home. The children's home can do more damage, more harm than anything, because there's no placement. There's just more rejection. There's just more bullying, and there's more children trying to assert their authority, trying to find a way in the world. Children stealing from you, you know, robbery, criminal aspects of it when you're a child and care. So yeah, it don't stop at child abuse. It doesn't stop there. It never stops there for people. And this is why the world is the way it is now. You've got men and women don't know what to do with emotions that they're dealing with. People use the word PTSD. PTSD doesn't boil down to just people in uniforms like army. It's down to trauma, post-traumatic stress syndrome. It's post-traumatic stress syndrome. It's not. You get me. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so for me, it doesn't stop there. So, you know, when you say you're a person with child abuse, you can add all of that on there. Fear, anxiety, you know, PTSD. They like to put all of this into one box, but it reminds you, just say you are a survivor of abuse, and how to overcome that abuse, how to win, how to get justice back. You're never going to get your justice the way you want justice from this kind of stuff, but the way you get your justice back is to get your life back and be be a role model, be a leader, get out there and don't waste your life. The enemy wanted to steal it. Now, if you get your life back, you win, don't you? So you've got to get your life back, and they lose. And the more you speak about things, you think about it. And I'm going to project this out there really loud, but the more you talk about this abuse, the more you talk about, okay, I was a victim. You don't have to go into detail. You don't have to do that. It happened to me. Put your hand up. It happened to me. The more you speak about it, is you put your abusers to shame publicly anyway. You don't even have to say their name, but you put them to shame. So where are they going to run? When people do paedophile hunters, they put them all over the internet. Well, I don't think I could be responsible like that. Broadcasting, hey, this is the person that did it to me. That's a big, bold statement. But the way that I do my awareness is that if my perpetrator was alive today, I don't know what I would have done, because I went off the rails. And going off the rails puts you in a different kettle of fish, and all the anger and rage that you feel, I took it all out of myself rather than take it out on my perpetrator. So I don't know how I would have felt if my perpetrator was here today, in how I'm feeling. I'm strong today. But if this was 10, 15 years ago and I'd met with my perpetrator, I don't think the outcome would have been very good if I knew what was actually happening to me. But because I didn't know what was happening to me, you can't confront them, because you don't know any different. You just know it's a dirty little secret that you have to keep between one another, because I don't know why, because you're protecting your family. You definitely protect your family. So how do you get it to stop? Well, when you move out, you get a little bit of peace. The thing is, when I moved out, I went to visit my perpetrator. That's right. Because I knew how to get money. And so he groomed me into a way of play the game. So you think about it. How old was I? A child, and this man is in his 40s or something like that. You know what I mean? And I was a child. So the more I go up, the more you go into these things, these people don't have the power on you. I mean, every time I'm talking about it, I've got a picture of his face in my head, clear as day. And he reminds me of the man from Planet of the Apes. I have to say it. I used to watch that film, Planet of the Apes, and he reminded me every time when that came on, he reminded me of him. So I kind of didn't like watching Planet of the Apes, because he reminded me of one. Carnation milk, 3 sugars, diabetes, even to the point where his toe fell off once. Did I get to report it? No. Did I get counselling for sexual abuse? No. Did you get counselling for something else? Yes. Did you ever go into it? No. All I ever said was, this happened to me. Nobody says you was a victim of child abuse. Nobody identified that. I'm identifying that as an adult. I'm identifying that when I speak to professionals. But I never went into depth to get any help or support, because nobody told me, nobody taught me. You just go through the process as an adult of understanding what happened. First, then you muster out whether or not it was your fault. Did you participate in it? How could it be my fault? I'm 2 years old. That's not my fault. That's not my fault. How do you remember 2? Because I can distinctly remember 2, 3. I can distinctly remember seeing what I need to what I can think of, and without going into it anyway. My point is, at the end there, I echo out what these ladies say. Watch your back, watch your back garden. Keep an eye on your children. Another thing that really bothers me, and it really does bother me, is that when people get with new partners, that they expose their children around their new partners trying to play damn daddy. Okay, and that's not the children's fathers, but what's happening with the children is that they're walking around these new daddies, yeah, new wannabe play daddies that don't, not really exactly a good great role model, and the children don't have any knickers on, they don't have any nappy on, and these children are just then hi, do you mind? The parent gets into, and I'm not gonna put it down to the parent gets. I'm going to use the word parent. The parent gets into a routine of thinking they're going to set up a great family home, and this one's going to be the new role daddy. And I just want to pop to the shop. Would you look after my babe for me? That's what happens. And then suddenly the parent's gone to the shop, and that is when these new people in their life that they don't know do things to their children. Their children are uncomfortable, don't know what to say, and that's the grooming process. And that's because somebody is too busy trying to play a bloody do a replacement, without you just have to just stop with these pretend aunties and uncles and things that are not your blood. Do your due diligence into the background, but even like I said, it's normally the closest people to you. It can be because they've got access to you. That's why a lot of the abuse happens, because they have access to you. Where do you know of we call it rape, don't we, if something happened outside the home or in the home? But you see, where do you get where do you actually hear a lot of the stuff saying, yeah, I was abused and it happened outside? It doesn't, you're not getting that. A lot of that is more in-house. So it's happening within people's homes, and it happens in care homes, it happens in schools, it happens in those private schools, it happens, I mean, the amount of stories that you hear in those things. But for me, my loves, I would like for you to get your life back, and don't let them ruin your life and take your life into this depression. The way to go forward is to find some creativity, and you've got to find some creativity, and just, you've got to do it for yourself, ain't you? You've got to try and do it for yourself. So I'm going to say, do for yourself. You've got to find a passion. You've got to find something to wake up for. You've got to task set, and you've got to structure. And I think there's not a lot, when people are suffering from depression, that there isn't a lot of structure going on. So I am going to uplift the tempo and shake that off. So Shakira, am I uplifting the tempo? Okay, let's do this. So technology, because I want to shake it off. Here we go. I don't know if you can hear that. It's not going to work, that one, is it? So so lots of other, I have to put my head in a better space, because when you go to put music on, right, and if the music is wrong, then it will just make you think more and more, and that's not what you want. You don't want to be thinking into that situation. So my loves, I'm going to shake it out. That's all we can do. Cut, shake off, and claim your life back. Yeah, they don't own it. Can you hear that? Thank you for listening. One voice, one nation. The aim. Prevention. Bye-bye.